Mambo Mike here. Veganism. That's a very, very touchy subject for a lot of people. I'm not here to bash meat eaters or vegans or vegetarians. I do a lot of work helping people who have a multitude of different diets. So I would hope that those of you who are watching, please try not to put people into one box or label, fanatical vegans or resistant meat eaters or whatever these personal attacks are. So if you feel the need to be defensive or make rude comments, I would suggest that you just stop watching my video now. This is really not for you. All right. So now that we got that out of the way, let me tell you a little bit about what I do. So as far as my diet goes, I've been a vegetarian for almost 2 years, and I gradually reduced my meat consumption up until the point I became vegetarian. And right now, I mostly have a plant-based diet that's mostly vegan on the weekdays, and on the weekends, and occasionally when I go out, sometimes I'll have some animal products. So special events, I might have a little taste of the meat that somebody made. I don't obsess about it too much. But for the most part, I try to eat a mostly plant-based diet. Okay? So, and it's working very well for me. I don't feel weak. As a matter of fact, I can do things that most people half my age can't do. And I'm going to be 45 this month. So it's whatever you want it to be. And I can tell you that maybe say 10 years ago when I tried to go vegetarian for a few days, I felt weak and I didn't think it would work. And then as a person who studies nutrition and working with other athletes, I had this belief that it's not possible. And it wasn't until a few years ago when I decided, you know what, I'm going to find out from the people who are doing it and how they're doing it, and because obviously there are people who are successful at being vegans, right? And I decided to embark on that journey of discovering how to do it. And so here I am. I'm a vegetarian, and I'll be honest with you, the only reason I'm not vegan is purely for convenience. You know, when I'm going out or somebody bakes some cookies or some cake, and obviously most of the time it's not vegan, so I have a little anyway. But I have it because I make some small allowances for it. It's not that I need the animal products to feel healthy or to feel strong. I really don't. Okay? So there's many reasons why people want to be vegan or vegetarian or plant-based. For me, it is mainly having compassion for all living things, all beings. And I like meat, so I can thrive on both a purely plant-based diet as well as a diet with meat. Although I do find that my digestion's better, have less toxins and things like that when I'm on a plant-based diet. So that being said, I'm going to just quickly run through the list of sort of these typical arguments, and I don't expect you to agree with all of them, but I'm just going to give you my point of view, right? The first one is plants have feelings. Well, plants don't have a nervous system, so whether you're comparing, you can't tell me that if you're going to cut a chicken versus, cutting a piece of celery, that the celery feels as much pain as a chicken. And if you think that, then I don't want to argue with you, right? Because it's not logical. Also, there are fruits, nuts, seeds, things like that naturally, when they're ripe, they fall off the tree or the plant or the pea pod or whatever it is that they are harvested from, and these are meant to be eaten. Not only are they meant to be eaten, but this is nature's way of spreading the seed. So this whole idea of plants having feelings is BS, all right? Because obviously, yes, they are a living thing and they do have some consciousness to them, but you're not comparing the same things, all right? Then the other one, land land being used up, unsustainable if we all of a sudden went vegetarian, or we all of a sudden ate plants. Well, what do you think the animals that you eat? They eat plants, right? And so these plants have to be grown on the same land. So if you're talking about factory farming, it's going to use more land actually to raise animals. And we're talking about sustainable as in a truly natural way of living off the land, eating animals or plants can both be sustainable. But that's for another topic, which I'm not going to get into here. The next one, animals, livestock would not exist if we didn't eat them. Well, yeah, well, why would you want to raise animals just for the purpose of eating them, right? These are domesticated animals that otherwise would never have been domesticated if you weren't exploiting them and raising them for food, right? So they would be the wild version of goats or pheasants or chickens or hogs or whatever, but they wouldn't be the domesticated version. And so you're not going to all of a sudden have a huge overpopulation of animals because these animals are being raised for food. And if people are eating less of them, then obviously there would be less animals, right? Animals eat meat, right? Yeah, well, so lions eat meat and cows eat grass, right? So you're not a cow or a lion. So it's really a wasted argument because you don't have two stomachs like a cow. You don't eat grass, and you also don't, rip raw flesh and swallow it whole like lions do, right? So that's pretty much meaningless. Being humane, right? So everybody talks about, well, if you humanely kill animals. Well, yes, if you can raise an animal in a less cruel way and you eat it, certainly that's better. But either way, you're killing an animal. So let's not forget that, right? And I'm not going to get into the whole moral thing about if it's okay to kill for food, because let's face it, if somebody killed your dog for food, humanely killed your dog, or humanely, killed your family and ate them, okay, how would you feel about that? Okay, that's just a perspective that I want you to look at. And I'm not making a judgment whether or not you want to do that, but this whole idea of humane is really, free range. And yes, there are ways of, eating animals that are less cruel than the factory farming, but let's not forget, either way, we are raising animals or killing animals specifically for the purpose of consuming them. Okay, so just be aware of that. So as far as vegetarians being weak, vegans being weak, there are plenty of Olympic level gold medalist athletes, strength athletes, athletes setting world records that are vegan. And why aren't there more? Because there aren't that many vegans. But the point I'm making is there are vegans who are really excelling at their game. And if you Google some of these athletes, like Carl Lewis, for example, or this other guy who's has like one of the strength records, they're vegan. So it's quite possible. Protein. Vegans don't get enough protein. Well, I'm getting enough protein, okay? And I'm not a bodybuilder. I've been this size pretty much for like 30 some odd years. I haven't lost any muscle since I became vegetarian or plant-based. And so I'm here to tell you it is possible. And amino acids are amino acids. So whether you're eating something that has so-called complete protein or not, as long as you're eating a variety of foods, you're getting all the amino acids. It's not like your body uses one set of complete proteins or amino acids. You're getting a whole mix of different ones, and your body uses what it needs in different ratios. So just eat, okay? And if you need a supplement, if you're trying to gain muscle mass or you're concerned about getting enough protein, there are plenty of excellent vegan protein powders on the market. I will be doing a review on some of these products in the near future. And blood type. You hear this whole thing about blood type, type O needs more meat or whatever, right? And I can tell you right now, I'm a type O, and I bought into that idea of, well, yeah, I needed more meat, so I had more meat, and at some point I actually even felt good eating meat. But as I progressed, there came a point where I didn't need meat, so that's just a natural transition. And I can tell you, I don't feel any less weak. I don't feel any lower in energy or vitality or anything like that. But I eat a very diet that's very rich in superfoods and trace elements and things like that. B12. Another one that you hear is that vegans and vegetarians don't get enough vitamin B12. Well, for those of you who don't know, the reason meat has B12 in it is because the animal feed is fortified with B12. So if that weren't the case, you wouldn't get B12 in that either. And there are small amounts of B12 in certain plants that are grown in very rich soil. But there are plenty of people who are deficient in B12, meat eater and plant eaters. It doesn't really make a difference. All right, so I might have missed a few things, but those are just some of the ones that I wanted to cover. But the whole point I want to make is it's all about belief. So if you don't want to change, then keep doing what you're doing, right? So if you're watching this, hopefully you're one of those people who are considering making a change. And so this idea of what's more spiritual is fucking total BS, right? Because let's change the word. I want to use the word compassion. What is the more compassionate diet? And I'll leave that up to you to decide, right? Because let's be realistic. If not killing an animal is more compassionate than killing an animal, right? And if you're going to kill the animal and you kill the animal in a quicker, less painful way, that's more compassionate than not doing so, right? And then if you want to take that a step further back, if you're going to raise the animal and allow it to roam free and allow it to be happy and then kill it, that's better than running through some torture chamber in some very heavily confined abusive environment. So there's different levels of compassion, and I'll leave it up to you to decide what is considered compassionate. But this whole idea of spiritual and what's spiritual and what's natural is all total BS. And if you look at how our intestines are built, for example, our body is designed mainly to digest plants, right? We have very long intestines, and we don't process meat as well, and that's why a lot of people are having problems consuming large amounts of meat. And our stomach acids are not really equipped to handle meat. So yes, we've evolved to be able to eat meat purely from survival, and maybe if you're from an ancestry where you had to migrate to areas like in the Arctic or whatever, and all you can eat is whale blubber or whatever, then that's what you got to eat. But let's not confuse that with being natural, right? So whether you want to be vegan or not, you can find proof of why you can and why you can't. So all these little stupid posts about, look, here's a vegan who got sick. I can show you another one. Here's a meat eater who's sick. So it doesn't mean anything. You're putting a broad assumption based on this particular label. The fact is, there are people doing it. There are people doing it successfully. And if you're interested in doing that, I can help you. But as far as shifting into the new paradigm in the popularity of vegetarian and veganism, it's easier now more than ever because of supplements and technology and new information. And so I urge you to consider if that's really something that you want to embark on. It's possible, because if you look at people who invented the airplanes, for example, right? They said, it couldn't be done. And these guys, the Wright brothers, whoever, they made so many prototypes of the planes, and some of them worked okay, and eventually they got better and better. So if you're using the current reality of what you see as people can't do it as proof that you can't do it, then whatever you believe is true. If you believe you can't, it's true. If you believe you can, that's also true, right? So this whole idea of ancestry and people way back did this. Well, first of all, there's a lot of fossils of bones, right? So there's no fossils of people with vegetables. So depending on how far back you want to go in ancestry, there were people who were on a plant-based diet. Okay, and a lot of the information you're going to have to just use your own discretion as far as discernment in terms of the information you get, because if you go on the internet, you're going to find plenty of articles or research that support meat eater and both and other research that supports veganism, and I'll leave it up to you to decide which is correct. But I can tell you right now that the agricultural industry, which has very powerful corporations, will want you to continue to be dependent on dairy and meat and GMOs and all these other products that they're selling. So they have an interest in making you feel like you need these products. And so, just like the pyramids were built, and we don't have the technology to figure out how they were built, doesn't mean that it wasn't possible. And so there's a lot of things that are possible if you can put your mind to it. But the first step is you have to want to do it. And if you want to do it, then move in that direction. Look for proof from people who are doing it. And if you don't, and you're happy doing what you're doing, then whatever. Keep doing what you're doing. All right? So that's all I got to say. Sure, there's going to be a lot of questions. So if you have any comments, please post it below. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching.